Welcome back to the Art of Moving Boxes. I'm James Goldman. Today we're going to get uncomfortable. We're talking about one of the most dangerous myths in warehouse management, hero culture. It's the idea that your operation is successful because you have one or two people who save the day every single time things go wrong. We see it everywhere, from small family businesses to massive fulfillment centers. You know who I'm talking about. Every facility has one. The supervisor who works 80 hours a week and never complains, the loader who has secrets for packing a trailer that no one else can replicate with secrets he won't share. The person management calls at 2 a.m. because the WMS crashed and they're the only ones who know the workaround. We celebrate these people. We give them awards. We tell them they're indispensable. We call them the heart of the operation. But here is the blunt, hard truth that most leaders don't want to hear. If your operation depends on a hero, you don't have a process. You have a massive ticking liability. Every time someone saves the day, it is a glowing neon sign telling you that your system has failed. The hero isn't the solution. They are the symptom of a much deeper, much more expensive problem. And the longer you ignore it, the bigger the explosion will be. When you rely on a hero, you aren't managing an operation. You are managing a series of miracles. And you cannot scale a miracle. You cannot predict a miracle. And you sure as hell cannot build a long-term sustainable business on the back of one person's exhaustion. Hero culture is the enemy of scalability. It's the enemy of safety. And ultimately, it's the absolute enemy of your bottom line. It's a short-term fix that creates long-term fragility. Think about how fragile that makes your business. If that hero gets sick, if they decide they've had enough of the 80-hour weeks, or if a competitor offers them a better deal, what happens to your throughput? It doesn't just dip, it craters, because the knowledge isn't in your SOPs, it's in their head. And when they walk out that door, your operational intelligence walks out with them. You're left with a building full of people who don't know how to run the building. Dependency is not leadership. If you can't run your facility without a specific individual, you aren't leading, you're being held hostage by your own lack of process. This happens because it's easier to reward a hero than to fix a system. It's easier to say thank you for a 14-hour shift than to spend 6 months documenting a complex workflow. But easy is the path to failure in this industry. The warehouse doesn't care about your feelings, it cares about output. We also have to look at the heroes themselves. Why do they do it? Often they feel a sense of pride. They like being needed. They like being the only ones with the keys to the kingdom. But that pride is a trap. It leads to burnout, and it prevents them from growing into true leaders. A leader's job is to build a team that can succeed without them. A hero's job is to be the only one who can succeed. Those two things are diametrically opposed. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a supervisor at a high-volume fulfillment center I consulted for a few years back. She was brilliant. She understood the WMS logic better than the people who wrote the code. Management adored her. Whenever a wave got stuck or a sorter stopped communicating with the host, the answer was always the same: call Sarah. She was the human bypass for every technical failure they had, and Sarah would fix it every time. She'd spend 20 minutes on a terminal, tap in a few overrides, and the facility would roar back to life. She was the ultimate hero. But management was so focused on the fact that she could fix it, they never asked why it kept breaking. They were so relieved to have a hero, they stopped being leaders. They stopped investigating root causes because Sarah was faster than a root cause analysis. They thought they were winning because their best person was on the job. In reality, they were creating a single point of failure. They were allowing the entire operation to become addicted to Sarah's presence. They didn't fix the WMS bugs. They didn't train the other supervisors. They just leaned harder and harder on Sarah, treating her like a machine instead of a human being with a life and a limit. Sarah was working 14-hour days, 6 days a week. Her phone was a weapon. It went off at dinner, at 3 a.m., and on her kids' birthdays. She was the hero the company wanted, but she was paying for it with her sanity. And you could see it. The mistakes started small. Typos in the manifest, missed emails, but the fatigue was deep. She was running on fumes, and management just kept asking for one more miracle. Management saw the signs, but they chose to look the other way. They just thanked her for her dedication. Dedication is a great word for a plaque. It's a terrible word to use as a replacement for an adequate headcount or a stable system. Sarah was drowning in responsibility, and the leadership was just standing on the dock cheering for how well she was treading water, rather than throwing her a life jacket or fixing the leak in the boat. They thought they were being efficient. They thought they were optimizing their human capital. In reality, they were gambling the entire facility's uptime on the health and sanity of one individual. They were one heart attack, one car accident, or one bad day away from a total shutdown. And they didn't even have a backup plan. The backup plan was literally just hope that Sarah doesn't quit. And that is not a strategy. Then came a Tuesday morning, peak season, 40,000 orders in the queue. The wave logic glitched. The managers reached for their phones. They called Sarah. No answer. They called again, straight to voicemail. Sarah wasn't just late, she was gone. She had reached her absolute limit and decided that no paycheck was worth the cost she was paying. She had walked away from the industry entirely without saying a word. We're going to dive into the absolute chaos that followed Sarah's departure right after this first break. If you think you're safe because you have a hero, you need to hear what happened next. Well, if you've worked in a warehouse for any length of time, you know your hands take a beating. Cardboard, pallets, strapping, cold weather, long shifts. I found a pair of gloves that are built for exactly that kind of work. That's why I'm proud to partner with Bare Knuckles Gloves. They're comfortable, durable, and designed for people who actually work with their hands, not just look at spreadsheets. If you'd like to give them a try, you can save 15% using my promo code FLOOR15. Just visit the link in my link tree in the description below. You only get one pair of hands. Protect them. Use promo code FLOOR15 to save 15% and check out the link in my link tree. The warehouse never lies. Keep them moving. Keep them moving. Keep them. Welcome back to the Art of Moving Boxes. We just left off with Sarah vanishing on the biggest day of the year. The facility ground to a halt. For 8 hours, no one knew how to bypass the wave error. The other supervisors were lost because they'd never been taught. They'd always just been told to call Sarah. Sarah's heroics hadn't built a team. They had built a dangerous, expensive dependency. That one day of downtime cost the company over $500,000 in missed ship dates, late fees, and lost customer trust. All because they chose heroics over process. They treated Sarah like an asset, but by not building a system around her knowledge, they turned her into their biggest liability. The warehouse never lies. The numbers eventually caught up with them, and they were devastating. Sarah was gone, and the building was broken. Management acted like it was a tragedy. It wasn't. It was a complete failure of leadership. They allowed a hero to replace a system, and they paid for it in millions of dollars and a ruined reputation. Sarah wasn't the problem, the leadership was. They traded sustainability for a short-term fix, and they lost everything. Don't let your facility become the next cautionary tale. Process is the only thing that lasts. We talked about the operational risk. Now, let's talk about the cultural rot. Because when you rely on a hero, you aren't just hurting the hero. You are actively stunting the growth of every other person on your team. You are telling them that their development doesn't matter as long as the hero is there to fix things. You are building a culture of incompetence by proxy. Think about your mid-level performers. When they see that the only way to get ahead or be valued is to sacrifice their life like Sarah did, they check out. Or even worse, they stop trying to learn. Why would I spend the time to master the WMS if Sarah is just going to swoop in and fix it anyway? Hero culture creates a team of bystanders who just watch the fire burn until the hero arrives. It creates a culture where not my problem becomes the default setting. People stop taking ownership because they know the hero will carry the weight. You lose your bench strength. You lose your future leaders. You end up with one person doing all the thinking and 100 people just waiting for instructions. That's not a team. That's a cult of personality that dies as soon as the personality leaves. It's the opposite of a high-performance culture. And then there's the resentment. The hero eventually starts to resent the team for not stepping up. And the team starts to resent the hero for hogging all the importance and the recognition. It creates friction where there should be flow and makes the warehouse a miserable, toxic place to work. And misery is incredibly expensive. It leads to high turnover, and turnover is the silent killer of profitability in logistics. Managers love heroes because it makes their lives easier in the short term. They don't have to deal with the messy work of training or the boring work of documentation. They just have to say thank you to the hero once a week. But that laziness is a betrayal of the business. Real management is about building a system that works even when your best people are on vacation. If you can't do that, you aren't a manager, you're a spectator. Then there was Charlie. Charlie was a loader. 30 years on the same dock. He was a hero in a different way than Sarah. Charlie could load a trailer tighter and faster than anyone else in the building. He had this internal compass for cubes and weights that was unparalleled. On paper, Charlie was a superstar. Management pointed to his numbers as the gold standard for the entire company. But Charlie had a secret. Charlie had secrets. He had workarounds for the loading software that he developed over decades. He had specific ways of stacking that he wouldn't share with anyone. He liked being the only one who could get the high priority, difficult trailers out on time. He guarded his knowledge like it was a state secret. And management let him do it because as long as Charlie was there, the numbers looked great. They didn't realize they were being gatekept. But here was a problem with Charlie's heroics. You cannot scale Charlie. When the business grew and we needed to run 20 more trucks per shift, we couldn't just make more Charlies. We tried to train new loaders, but they all failed or quit within 2 weeks because Charlie couldn't explain how he did what he did. He just said, "You just got to feel it, kid. You can't put feel it into an SOP. You can't train a new hire on magic." Charlie's individual excellence was an operational bottleneck because we relied on his personal genius rather than a repeatable, teachable process. We were stuck at his personal capacity. We were paying for heroism, but what we were actually getting was a hard ceiling on our growth. Charlie was a great guy, but his lack of a documented process was holding the entire company back from expanding. He was a hero that was killing the business. This is what I call tribal knowledge. It's when your operational intelligence exists only in the minds of a few veterans. It's dangerous, it's inefficient, and it's a form of gatekeeping that prevents your operation from evolving. If your best way of doing things isn't written down, it doesn't actually exist in the business. It's just a lucky habit of a specific person. And lucky habits don't survive growth. They don't survive turnover. The cost of Charlie's secrets was enormous. It was the cost of every new loader who quit in frustration because they couldn't meet Charlie's standard. It was the cost of the damages that happened when Charlie wasn't there and someone else tried to feel it and failed. It was the constant anxiety of management knowing that if Charlie decided to retire tomorrow, the dock would literally fall apart. That's not a way to run a professional business. That's a high-stakes gamble. We've seen the damage. Sarah's burnout and Charlie's bottlenecks are just two sides of the same coin. Now, how do we fix it? How do you transition from a hero culture to a process culture without losing your best people or tanking your numbers? It starts with a fundamental mindset shift in leadership. You have to stop being grateful for the save and start being angry at the system failure that made the save necessary. We're going to get into the specific steps to dismantle hero culture and build a resilient, process-driven operation right after this. If you want to stop relying on miracles, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I want to take a minute to tell you about something that really caught my attention. Ramble Office Anywhere. For years, I was a road warrior, moving from one warehouse project to another, often working out of temporary project offices or hotel rooms. My office traveled in pieces. Laptop in one bag, cables in another, clothes separate. Rebuilding that workspace every day was a grind. That's why the Ramble Destination Travel Trunk caught my eye. It is a mobile office built for professionals who need to stay productive. One half is designed to organize and protect your office equipment and work essentials, while the other half gives you space for your clothing and personal items. It's about getting to work without digging through multiple bags. If you spend your life working on the road as a consultant or project leader, this product just makes sense. I genuinely wish I'd had it years ago. Find it through my link tree and use code FLOOR15 for a 5% discount. Travel anywhere, work everywhere, and take your office with you. And we're back on the art of moving boxes. Now let's talk about the cure. How do you dismantle a hero culture? It starts with you, the leader, admitting that every time you celebrate a heroic save, you are celebrating a failure of your own planning. You have to stop rewarding the firefighters and start rewarding the fire preventers. You have to change what you value in your employees. Value houses. You have to make it clear that the most valuable person in the room isn't the one who works the most hours or knows the most secrets. The most valuable person is the one who documents a process so well that a new hire can do it on day one. The real hero is the person who makes themselves unnecessary through documentation and training. That is a mindset shift that has to happen from the top down. If you don't value the system, your people won't either. Every time a hero saves the day, you need a mandatory postmortem, not to punish the hero, but to audit the process. Why did Sarah have to stay late? Why was Charlie the only one who could load that trailer? If you don't find the root cause of the crisis, you are just waiting for the next fire to break out. A save is just a delay of a disaster. You have to dig until you find the broken logic, the missing tool, or the training gap. Then you fix it forever. Step 1, standardize everything. If there are 3 ways to pick a zone, you don't have a process, you have a choice. And choices lead to variation, and variation leads to errors. You need one way, the best way, and everyone has to do it that way. No exceptions for veterans. No secret Charlie methods allowed. One standard across all shifts, all facilities. Consistency is the foundation of quality and safety. If it's not standard, it's not a process. Step 2, document. If it isn't written down, it doesn't exist in the business. I don't care how many years of experience someone has. If they can't put it in an SOP with clear visual instructions, it isn't operational intelligence. It's just tribal knowledge. Documentation is how you protect your business from the Sarah problem. It's your insurance policy against burnout and turnover. Your SOPs should be clear enough that a stranger could follow them to success. And it needs to be visual. It needs to be accessible on the floor. A binder collecting dust in the manager's office isn't a process, it's a memory of one. Your documentation should be a living part of the workflow. It should be updated every time you find a better way. If your SOP hasn't changed in a year, you aren't improving, you're decaying. The goal is a system that evolves with the operation, not one that holds it back. Step 3, train and cross-train. Knowledge should never pool in one place. Your goal should be that any person on your floor can step into any critical role with minimal friction. This isn't just about efficiency, it's about resilience. A cross-trained team is a team that doesn't need heroes. It's a team where everyone is a professional. Training isn't a cost, it's an investment in your own survival. If you don't have time to train, you don't have time to succeed. Step 4, audit. You can't just set it and forget it. You have to verify that the standards are being met every single shift. You have to check the documentation against the reality on the floor. Auditing is how you ensure that hero culture doesn't creep back in through the back door. It's how you maintain the discipline of a process-driven operation. If you don't inspect what you expect, you are just wishing for success rather than building it. Consistency requires vigilance. I want you to do the liability test today. Look at your team. If your top 3 performers, your 3 biggest heroes left this afternoon, what would your throughput look like tomorrow morning? If the answer is we'd be in trouble, then you don't have a business, you have a massive liability. You need to start fixing that today, not next quarter. Identify your single points of failure and start building bridges around them. No one person should be bigger than the process. This transition is hard. Your heroes might feel threatened. They might feel like you're taking away their importance by documenting their secrets. You have to lead them through that. Show them that by building processes, they are actually becoming more valuable because they are building something that lasts. You aren't replacing them. You are leveraging their expertise to build a better company. They move from being the doer of miracles to the builder of systems. The long-term advantage of a process culture is massive. It leads to lower turnover because people aren't burnt out like Sarah. It leads to higher quality because errors are caught by the system, not by luck. And it leads to higher profitability because you can scale without needing to find another miracle worker every time you grow. Sustainability is the ultimate competitive advantage in the warehouse world. A boring, consistent warehouse is a profitable warehouse, always. Don't confuse heroics with excellence. Excellence is a habit. Excellence is a standard. Excellence is what happens when a group of well-trained people follow a well-designed process every single day, even when no one is watching. Heroics are just a loud, flashy way of failing. Choose excellence over heroics. Build the system. Trust the process. The results will speak for themselves in your throughput, your safety, and your sanity. Choose to be a leader of systems. Once the processes are in place, your job changes. You move from being the person who manages crises to the person who manages the process. You look for ways to make the system better, not ways to work harder. You become an architect of success rather than a victim of chaos. This is where real warehouse mastery happens. It's where you move from surviving to thriving. And it all starts with killing the hero. Your job as a leader is to create an environment where heroes aren't necessary. If you are constantly asking for heroes, you aren't leading, You're just reacting to your own failures. We're going to take one final break, and then I'll leave you with a final thought to take into your facility this week. Take a moment to think about your Sarahs and your Charlies. We'll be right back for the wrap-up. One last break, and then the final word. Before we continue, I want to take a minute to talk about the Art of Moving Boxes ecosystem. This has become much more than a podcast. Everything I am building under the Art of Moving Boxes has one central purpose: paying it forward to the next generation. I have spent more than 30 years in warehouses, implementations, operations, leadership, and warehouse systems. I have learned a lot of those lessons the hard way. And the reason I share these stories, these mistakes, and these experiences is so the next generation does not have to learn every lesson the hard way too. So if you enjoy this podcast and want to stay connected, everything is available through my link tree in the episode description. That is the easiest place to find all of it. You can subscribe to the Art of Moving Boxes YouTube channel, where I share podcast episodes, warehouse lessons, and short form videos. I also share longer conversations about what really happens inside these operations. You can join the Art of Moving Boxes LinkedIn group, where warehouse and supply chain professionals can connect, share ideas, ask questions, and learn from one another. You can listen to the Art of Moving Boxes warehouse radio stations while you work, travel, or keep the operation moving. You can also check out the merchandise store and support the brand. You can also find my books. The Art of Moving Boxes focuses on the lessons behind warehouse operations, while The Warehouse Never Lies brings those lessons to life through a story about leadership, systems, and people. It's about the truth that always shows up on the floor. You can also find my link to my advisory group, JGA, along with the technology, products, and professional tools I use. And again, everything is available through my link tree in the episode description. Some of those links are affiliate or promotional links, which means I may receive a commission at no additional cost to you. But the bigger purpose behind all of this is not just promotion. It is about building a community, sharing real experience, and telling the truth about warehouse operations. And most importantly, it is about paying it forward to the next generation. So visit my link tree, join the community, and keep learning. Share what you know, and help us keep the boxes moving. Thank you for being part of this journey. We're back for the final word on the Art of Moving Boxes. The warehouse never lies. It's my mantra because it's the absolute truth. You can tell yourself whatever stories you want about how great your team is, but the numbers, the damages, the turnover, they will tell the real story of your operation. And if that story is one of constant chaos and individual heroics, you have serious work to do as a leader. Heroism is a debt you pay for a broken system. Don't let your legacy be that you were the one who always saved the day. Let your legacy be that you built an operation so robust, so standardized, and so resilient that it didn't need saving. That is what true warehouse leadership looks like. That is how you build a winning team that lasts for decades. Stop looking for heroes and start building processes. The warehouse is waiting for you to lead. Build something that outlasts a hero. Thanks for listening to The Art of Moving Boxes. I'm James Goldman. I hope this episode challenged you to look at your facility a little differently this week. If you found this valuable, share it with another leader who might be stuck in the hero trap. We're all in this together, building better operations one process at a time. Your feedback is what keeps this conversation going, so let me know your thoughts. I'll be back next week with another deep dive into the real world of warehouse management. Until then, stay blunt, stay curious, and remember, the warehouse never lies. Good luck out there in the warehouse. Build better system, take care of your people, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.